Welcome everybody to the first lesson of the multi-part SciQuest biology video series. Throughout the lessons that follow, we'll be going over some of the most important concepts for high school biology. Whether it be for school, competition prep, or anything else really, this course aims to take you through everything. We'll follow the 12th edition of the Campbell Biology textbook, one of my personal favorites. There's plenty of introductory concepts laid out there, which I will dive into in a minute. But first, biology is a huge field, and before we can really get started, we need to answer one simple question. What is biology? The first approach I want to use here is breaking this word down, and you might notice that the suffix logy is a very familiar suffix you've seen before. It means the study of, or study. You see it in words like paleontology, archaeology, geology, other things like that, all used to describe fields of study. Bio is the real kicker. It means life, and some of you may already be familiar with this. Depends on how much English you know or how much of biology you may have already studied. In simple terms, biology is the study of life. So with that out of the way, we also need to look into some particularly important concepts, and in this introductory video I'm going to be going over two that I think are particularly important. The first is the idea of organization and the levels of complexity in biology. This is a key idea, and the reason it's so important is it takes us through all the stages of life as we know it, but not in the form of a life cycle, rather in the form of a complexity diagram. So I found this very nice picture online. The first stage, the simplest level, is the atom stage. Those tiny those tiny units that just make up everything. From atoms you get molecules, which see these atoms interacting in different ways to create large structures. Then you have cells, the basic unit of living things. There are some living things at this unit. You see so much complexity already emerging. Then tissues, groups of cells with very similar structures and functions, which we'll go over soon. Those tissues, they work together with multiple different tissue types to create an entire organ. And that organ works together with several more of its own type to create an organ system. And what comes after you put all these different organ systems together, have them each interact and regulate each other in multiple different ways, you get an organism, a real living thing at the multicellular level. I really like this example using an elephant. Quick thing you might want to know about me, or you might not, is that I love elephants. They're my favorite animal, so if I ever find an elephant demonstration, I will use it. Following the organism, we then have a group of organisms, the same species, which is a term we'll get into later, and it's called a population. Population is probably a term that most of us are familiar with, and in the biological context, it's just a group of the same species, the same type of organism, really. Then, once you take all the living things in an ecosystem, or in just a general area together, that becomes a community in the same relative area. Taking that with all of the non-living things too, so like sand, rocks, dirt, and I better not see any of you saying that trees aren't living, because they very well are. But when you take all the ecosystems all over the world, you get this huge system called a biosphere. And we are living in one of these. In fact, our Earth is one of the few biospheres that we even know. Now, of course, there's space explorations going on to discover new biospheres beyond our own, which may be suitable for human life. Always exciting to think about. But what distinguishes each level from each other? Well, there's this idea of emergent properties. Emergent properties. And what these are just new qualities that emerge, quite fittingly, or show up at each level. Think about it. Atoms interact differently to make molecules. Molecules interact differently to make cells. And if we continue down this train of thought, we see many different kinds of interactions going on between units here. Organisms to populations have much different changes than molecules to cells. Same thing with moving from a community to an ecosystem, for example. It's so much more different than just changing an atom to a molecule. That added complexity is what keeps building upon itself, and that creates our biosphere. But there's only one more concept that I want to talk about now, and it's the correlation between structure and function. Structure always in biology corresponds to function. And it's not just in biology, you see this everywhere. If you're into engineering, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. If this idea is confusing to you, try to remember the three F's. Form, follows, function. Essentially, the way that something is shaped and the way its parts work together is always unique based on the required purpose. For example, if we look at these three structures, they have the same types of bones, but they're arranged and sized very differently. In a dolphin, they need sturdy flippers for swimming. So, that's why the organization looks like this. A bat's wing must be very lightweight for flying, which is why it looks like that. And I'm not even going to try to draw a human hand, but of course we know the function is grabbing, moving it around, using it to extend and pick up, drop things, all of that, which is why it is such like a long, straight appendage. So form, and this is just one example, there's countless examples, especially when we get to talking about anatomy. Well, that's all for now. Get ready, because we're about to learn one of the most interesting science topics there is, biology.